can go ahead, Shiva.
Hi all, good morning and good evening. I'm Shivakumar, working as lead consultant and leading data privacy function at GAVS Technologies. And I'm glad to welcome you all to the webinar on Zero Trust with IAM to Achieving Automation and IT Alignment, hosted by GAVS Technologies in association with Islantis, a global leader in identity and access management. GAVS Technologies is a global IT services and solutions provider enabling digital transformation through infrastructure solutions. Our services include automation-led infrastructure services enabled by smart machines, AI ops, and cybersecurity. GAVS has been recognized as major contender in automation peak matrix by Everest Group and as a prominent India-based remote infrastructure management player and one of the key small players serving the mid-market and enterprise clients in North America by Gartner. I would like to introduce our speakers, Arun Kumar Singh, Chief Executive Officer of Islantis, and Kavita Srinivasalu, Head Cybersecurity and Data Privacy, GAVS Technologies, and also Sundaramurthy, Senior Technical Manager for Identity and Access Management, GAVS Technologies. Over to Arun, followed by Kavita and Sundar for a brief introduction. Over to you, Arun.
Thanks, Shiva. So, hi, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to join this webinar. As Shiva mentioned, that Islantis technology had been focused in identity and access management area since past 22 years. And we have had the opportunity to implement some of the most complex IAM deployment for Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. And in the process, we have also built our own product, which is called Compact Identity. And this is a product which is there in Gartner's Magic Quadrant as a niche player. We got this entry just last year. And also, like we are a market leader in the converged IAM space. And this is a new space which is emerging in the identity and access management, where clients are looking for all different components of identity management built into a single platform. So that's the company which I'm representing. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas. Today here weather is cloudy, and with the morning news, okay, I would like to see that how this session goes and what questions you guys have.
Thank you, Arun. Over to
Thanks,
Kavita.
Arun. Thanks, Shiva. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Hope you're doing good. And this is Kavita here. And I represent, myself from GAVS. At GAVS, I'm heading cybersecurity, as Shiva had mentioned, with overall 19 plus years of experience in and around cybersecurity, data privacy, and business resilience. I'm here with all of you today to share my experience and on different kinds of strategies that is getting developing on a day-to-day basis. With the technology, there are a lot of vulnerabilities and challenges that we are facing. So how we are going to face that together and handle the situation more effectively with the expertise areas that our teams is going to share, and we're going to discuss on this session with all your questions ahead, which will be useful not only for internally for us, for others also who are looking for solutions on the same lines. So looking forward for an interactive and good session today. Thanks. Over to you, Sundar.
Thank you.
You're on mute,
Sundar, your audio is not coming.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning and good evening. I'm Sundar. Totally, I have around 14 years of experience, 14 plus years of experience in identity and access management, including Java and other web technologies. Nice meeting you, and I'm here to share my thoughts on all the IAM expertise and experience which I have on this discussion. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Sundar, and good to have all three of you for discussing. For discussing on the trending topic, which is on the identity and access management. So, so let's get into our webinar. So today we are going to discuss on zero trust with identity and access management to achieving automation and IT alignment. Okay, So cybercrimes have become increasingly sophisticated with the new realities of a hybrid workforce. So the traditional approaches to identity and access are no longer viable. And today we'll discuss we'll get insights from Arun Kumar and Kavita and Sundar on the latest trends happening around the zero trust and the identity and access management. So before getting into that, I would like to engage our audience with the poll question. Can we have the poll question? And we will have around 30 seconds to respond. Post that, we will have a discussion on the query question. Okay. So the question is, have you implemented all the components of identity and access management in your environment? Okay. Can we have the responses, please? Okay. Arun, what's your thoughts on this? Like, as we
So
see, partial and none is almost equal
yeah, so
response.
this is very interesting result, and I was expecting on the same lines. Like, while identity and access management is one of the core foundational element to be able to build cybersecurity framework, however, like majority of organizations, they have done very little in this area. Like as is clear from this survey also, that majority of organizations they still rely on handling identity and access management manually, and some of them they deployed partially the solution, like just the directory solution or maybe only the access management solution, but not the complete 360-degree solution for identity management. And also, like people who have deployed the complete solution, they are looking at how to align it with the business and the IT, as the dynamic threat landscape is changing on a rapid basis. So this is very interesting, and as we take forward the conversation in this webinar, we will definitely discuss some of these points, that what are the repercussions of not automating identity
Correct.
management, where you miss out, and what needs to be done.
Definitely, Arun. Identity and access management is not a new concept, but yet the risks posed to enterprises have evolved to a greater extent. And increasing dependency on the third-party vendors, new privacy regulations, frequent data breaches, and shifting security threats have turned the third-party risk landscape, and the third-party risk programs must adapt to solve both security and governance challenges. So, Arun, what are your views on current risks and challenges that you foresee on identity and access management space?
So, Shiva, very good opening question. And let me start with the morning news, which I was mentioning, that Russia invasion in Ukraine, and I was mentioning that the physical attack starts with the cyber attack, and protecting the critical asset at the country level, not just organization level, is becoming paramount importance for the organization. Let's take a step back and look at what environment we had been living. The pandemic, since past several years, 2019, it had kind of forced everyone to, enable their employees, the contractors, business partner to work remotely. And the biggest risk is when people are connecting from remote. So how do you ascertain the right people have got right access? And it is a burden on the identity and access management. Not only that, now when people are connecting from remote, so they are also bringing in their own various different kind of devices, like iPad, their own personal laptop, the mobile phone. And this mobile phone and IoT, okay, this is also blurring the visibility, that who all are connecting onto the network. That's another challenge which organizations are dealing with. And then if you look at on the corporate side, the assets are not just limited only to the inside the corporate boundaries in the data center. Now the multi-cloud environment and on-prem environment, this is actually making that entire access and who is accessing what information more complex. And further to that, the SaaS applications, the PaaS applications, and related regulatory compliance framework is making this entire identity management area very, very risky. In nutshell, if you look at the big question, what identity and access management solution architects they are looking at is that who all are connecting to the corporate network. That's a big question, and like whether we have the full visibility of all the network, all the users and devices which are connecting to the network, and not having that visibility is creating various different kinds of challenges. For example, like any of those unmonitored devices, okay, that can be exploited by the hackers to implant the cryptojacker software, the malware, or maybe opening up the backdoor entry for ransomware attack. And now the biggest change which had happened is that the traditional perimeter based security architecture is going away. That's totally diminishing. We are living in an environment where the risk needed to be dealt with related to the open boundaries, people who are coming in from various different locations, not just corporate but remote home, different cities, and resources distributed into multiple environment. And in that environment we require to look at that how we are going to use the identity management solution to be able to provide the right security. So that's the kind of some of the risk which I see, Shiva, which are dominant for identity management solution architect.
Definitely, Arun. Thank you for summing up with the most recent practical thing which is happening around us. So, so, uh, so it's on the governing user accounts. So, since user accounts and identities are key part of the IT systems, Kavita, could you please share your insight on how to manage the users across the corporate network using identity and access management system?
Sure. Thanks, Shiva. It's a very good question, but we have to just take a step back and say, how important is the access control plays a key role in the organization. We will have to see how it was working and how it has changed in the past 2 years. You would have seen the COVID, which really hit globally by 2019 end, and by 2021 there was lot of significant changes or the attacks that were happening with respect to the access controls issue. Nearly 83% of the cyber attacks or the ransomware attacks that has happened in the market is due to unauthorized controls or unauthorized accesses that is prevailing in the environment. Average downtime that has been during 2021, especially due to unauthorized access or some hackers or predators getting full influence on the networks or intruding into the networks, has been significant, and nearly 200% it has increased on year. And it's going to be as per the recent surveys, as per Gartner and McKinsey, it's going to be increasing, and we are going to look forward to more significant effects in this cyber attacks or the increasing ransomware attacks that is prevailing in the market. So what is needed, what is expected, the organizations to be aware and to take precautious measures around this is definitely very important. And the constant pressure to protect the sensitive data within our organization has been increasing. The consumers or the customers are becoming very concerned about their data being protected in an open environment that we are all working on a day-to-day basis, as there was it's become working remotely has become new normalcy, right? So during this period, the data security models, there is a huge pressure, as Arun rightly quoted, a huge pressure on the IAM team for coming up with proper authorization and authentication methodologies, and aligning to the technologies that is growing. be it artificial intelligence or be it across IoT, there are a lot of technologies that is developing, where the IAM team are expected to identify the right level of access that is required to be enabled, to authenticate and to authorize in a very frequential or in a logical manner, to ensure we have systems protected, and the data that is that we are having in our database is secure. So how do we really protect, and what are the security best practices that we can enable for IDAM is definitely one of the key expectation and need in the environment is to restrict the access. We all or the organizations to take a decision, a stern decision on ensuring the accesses that is provided to the employees are not generic, but it has to be based on some level of restriction that needs to be enabled using. There are different tools, especially Islantis is one. Using tools, there are having various methodologies that can be utilized and that can be customized as per our requirements, and the access provided has to be privilege based. It might be role based, or it might be the project based, however the organization needs to be designing, but it has to be restricted. And second is there should be a continuous monitoring of of all the systems that we have that is working in our environment, and ensuring that the devices that we are enabled and that is working across the network is monitored, and if there is any alerts that is received are mitigated in a timely basis. And we'll have to definitely give permissions for access to critical data, and we have to also ensure our systems are getting enabled, upgraded, and patched on an ongoing basis, so that any any intrusions from internally or externally is not affecting our network. And the access level has to be reviewed on an ongoing basis to ensure the IAM permissions, or the permissions that we have provided in the network, are robust, and it is verified and validated on an ongoing basis, including the assets and the systems and the servers and the devices that we are working on a day-to-day basis. So these are some of the best practices and measures that we need to take from an organization's perspective.
And one quick comment,
Yes,
Kavita, like what you said,
yes.
I totally agree with that. And what I feel that most of the time when the number of identities in the organization, they are limited, like let's say 400, 500 identities, people can think of managing it manually. But the moment you cross, say, 1,000+ identities, so manually trying to manage the access control, providing all those restrictions, and relying on XLS based control is absolutely not going to work. To your point that as you have the 1,000+ identities, organizations should definitely look at automating this entire space. And some of these tools which you rightly mentioned, they also bring AI ML, the artificial intelligence machine learning kind of feature. They can actually do this job in a highly sophisticated manner to give the full visibility of what's happening in your network and who are the users and the devices which are connecting there.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Moreover, Kavita, we see lot of growth in the Indian market in terms of uh, customers started thinking about not the number of identities. Even though they have 500 or 600 identities, they started thinking about implementing an IDAM solution in the market. That's a very good phenomenal change when it comes to Indian market. We started seeing that, so I see the scope of implementation of IDAM in Indian market also. That's an excellent thing which I would like to register here.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Definitely, Sundar, the scope has been changed in the recent times post-pandemic. And also, zero trust is a buzzword. Like zero trust is emerging part of the security system. So Sundar, could you give us your thoughts on least privileged model on zero trust, which will refine the security gaps in the systems?
Sure. Thanks for this. It is an excellent question. So by now we have an clarity on what is zero trust, and we have been discussing this last few minutes, and we know why we need to implement zero trust also. Let's focus on the key areas of zero trust, or the three key pillars of zero trust. One is like uh, verify explicitly, and least privilege access, and assume breach. Those are the three key factors of zero trust. As you asked something more in detail about this privileged access, I would like to deep dive into it and give a more detailed explanation about how we could achieve least privilege access by implementing few models and controls in and around IAM space. Okay, so when it comes to zero trust, the key defense areas are like identities, networks, applications, endpoints, and data. So these are the key areas of zero trust which has to be implemented at, and all the hackers and those who like to steal the data, they are focusing on these areas of a corporate network. So what we have to do is like identities were also the key part of this zero trust where it has to be enforced. So these are the key defense areas of zero trust, and we are looking at one common place where we could implement controls in place so that we could control everything. So out of all the components which I have said, just to recollect it, it could be identities, applications, and uh, endpoints, networks, data, out of which we need to look at one place where we need to implement some control so that we could control everything. When we see one thing which is like that, which is identity. So that is the reason where we got into a space like identity centric approach or identity centric security. So when we do implement something around the identity, or identity is the one such component which controls everything. So it has identity has access to data, applications, endpoints, and all those things. So we could implement something in and around identity so that we could see better results also of it. This is the key idea of implementing zero trust. So let's look into detail on what are some things which we could implement in depth in zero trust to have a better control in zero trust. To start with, I would like to start with a simple example, or to give a base level scenario of implementing an IDAM solution. Consider a simple setup of 1,000 employees in a company, and they have in a company or a corporate organization, they have around 50 applications with them. Consider a situation like I cannot give access to all the 50 applications for 1,000 employees. It has to be managed very well. That's where we need to implement the zero trust, and one level we need, if you want to drill one level down, we need to implement a least privilege access there. So that's where this zero trust and the least privilege access is coming into picture, where I cannot give all the access to all the applications of the organization. I need to restrict the accesses to the employees or identities based on their role and job responsibilities. So that's where we need a implementation such as zero trust on top of IDAM. So uh, drilling one level further down, I would like to discuss on further models and controls which could be strengthened to enforce zero trust. It could be to start with whenever a identity, or when I wanted to refer it as a technical term, it could be an identity. In terms of business, it could be a employee. Whenever an employee joins an organization, to start with, birthright access is one of the best thing to start with. So I would like to stay in and around this privileged access, least privileged access, so that I could discuss in detail about all the controls in and around zero trust. So let me start with birthright. So birthright is something whenever an employee joins the organization, on the first day of joining an organization, what are all the basic accesses which has to be given to the employee. So that will be covered, and that has to be derived so that the employee will get all the accesses which are required, and there is nothing which will exceed to do his job responsibilities and duties. That could be the one thing. The next thing could be role-based access control. When it comes to role-based access control, based employee has joined an organization, he got his role. Now what could be enforced is role-based access control. Based on the role-based access control, all the applications, targets and access has to be provided to the employee, so that again it will enforce each and every control which we implement to enforce zero trust or the least privileged access is going to directly show the results in terms of securing the networks. That is for sure. On a role-based access control, we have multiple other topics. It could be bottom-up approach or top-down approach based on the data I have, and from where I'm starting to implement this RBAC or tightening the security, I need to decide my approach on uh, uh, whether to go with a top-down approach or bottom-up approach. A bottom-up approach, that could be the fact. And other module when I wanted to discuss about this least privilege access could be segregation of duties. Segregation of duties is one other model which could be implemented to do the enforcement for zero trust. So it could be when I wanted to drill down again with segregation of duties, it could be we need to maintain or we need to classify for a role what are all the access which could be access, which could not be access. We need to derive the toxic combination of accesses, and it has to be implemented. Again, if I wanted to drill one more level down in terms of segregation of duties, it could be proactive and reactive. So what if the data is going to be before I implement segregation of duties, and what is the data, how it is going to be impacted after I implement SOD. So those are all the things which will be covered as part of segregation of duties. And the other key factor to enforce least privilege access could be certifications. When I wanted to say in a generic word, it could be access reviews. Access reviews is something which has to be enforced in a quarterly, yearly, or half-yearly basis based on the requirement. When the access reviews are launched, each and every access to a employee will be reviewed by the manager or application owner in a timely basis, which will again enforce the access levels, and the access is required to the concerned account or identity or not. That will be taking an action on deprovisioning the accounts, which will be again directly impacting the security, which is going to give better results on implementing the zero trust. And to drill down, there are multiple types of access reviews. It could be done by manager, it could be done by application owner, it could be done by entitlement owner, and the certifications could be scheduled. All these things, multiple kinds of access reviews which could be done. And when it comes to approvals, for example, I'm requesting an access to a critical application in my organization. The hierarchy of approving the access request and approval should be strictly followed. I cannot request for myself and I cannot approve for myself. Then it is a breakage of governance and risk control. So that's where we need to implement the approvals in place also. So these are all few things I could keep on discussing, considering the best effort of time. So
Definitely, Sundar.
we could go
Like,
on to next thing, Ashok.
thank you for summing up on zero trust and also the process and the technicalities which we follow in identity and access management. Thanks for summing up.
Thanks.
So now we will have one audience question, as Sundar has given a brief and Sundar Arun and Kavita has given a brief overview of identity and access management. So let's have the poll question now for audience. Okay. So, what are the key challenges that you face in implementing the identity and access management system? A, application onboarding. B, role-based access control. C, provisioning. And D, customer requirements. So let's have 20 seconds for audience to select their responses.
You might have all of them as a challenge. Pick up which is your biggest challenge.
Arun, it depends on Kavita, is it okay for me to answer this?
Can we have the responses?
Once we have the response, I'll be happy
Can we
to
have
hear
the
from you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now, Arun and Sundar, please
Go
go
ahead, Kavita.
ahead.
Sundar, go ahead. You had
Yes,
please
and
go
to
ahead.
answer your question, Arun, it depends on multiple clients around. We have a discussion. We had a discussion with multiple clients, and they come up. Most of them they say that they have a challenge in this role-based access control, and there are some custom requirements. They have some third-party applications and in-house applications. They have problems in onboarding it to their IAM network because the product does not support the OOTP connectors, Arun. So those are the two key things at the top.
No, and I think from the this challenge, the poll question result also is very interesting. That entitlement, the fine-grained entitlement, the role-based access control, that seems to be the biggest challenge area. And it is true also that identifying what are the roles which are common across all the application in the organization, and bringing the consistent entitlement right from the time when person is joining, the birthright access, what you mentioned, Sundar, and then joiner, mover, lever, all throughout, that how you fine tune the entitlement, how you adjust it, and how the role based access control is established in the organization is certainly a big problem. Probably the application onboarding, the audience don't see that as a major challenge. I think that challenge comes only when you have a very large number of applications, like organizations having 100 plus applications. Then they deal with these issues, that whether out of box connector is available, not available, how to save the time and effort to integrate or onboard those application on the IAM platform. So that would be my comment. Kavita, if you want to comment on that.
Yes, thanks, Arun. So, whatever kind of controls that we are bringing in place and provisioning the access across the users, one major challenge that, based on my experience, that I faced is on deprovisioning, on revoking the access, which is a big challenge that has still being faced across the organizations, where when it is not revoked, there are chances where they utilize the opportunity. It might be an insider threat as well as an external threat once they leave the organization. If the access is still existing in the application or in the system, which we came across in some of the cases, when the deprovisioning is not happening on a proper or a frequent basis, on a regular basis, if it is not reconciled properly, then deprovisioning is becoming one of the big challenge that I would like to add on, where the organizations are facing threats on unauthorized accesses.
Yeah, totally agree. Like that's a big security risk, like orphan account and a timely inability to, deprovision in a timely fashion is a big security risk. Yep, no doubt
Right,
about it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Over to
Thanks
you.
for that. Okay. So, Arun, with a combination of identity and access management and zero trust, how this could be utilized to protect users, devices, applications, data inside and outside the network. So, how this can be utilized?
Yeah, so if you look at that way, how the zero trust is playing a role with identity and access management, and I'll go back to my experiences in my previous role while I worked at Ernst& Young as a partner, or at Accenture, where I led the global cyber managed security services globally. So, there also we had seen, like, past 12, 13 years, people had been talking about zero trust. But why it is becoming so very important now, and why everyone is interested in bringing this zero trust architecture, if you go into the detail of that, so the big reason is that perimeter-based security model is, diminishing. Okay, and organizations are increasingly realizing that, we cannot have a strong perimeter and create a DMZ, and based on that we can protect all our critical assets. And then when you look at the latest threats which we discussed in the beginning, okay, they are actually posing a very different approach for defining the security architecture. And in nutshell, the zero trust, what it says is, in simple words, if we need to explain this, so zero trust simply means that never trust, always verify. That's the core message or mantra which it is promoting. And when we actually bring the zero trust architecture in the organization, so what it essentially means is that you are going to establish a dynamic digital identity centric architecture in the organization. And you might have heard that people are starting to call that identity is the new firewall. So earlier, like we had various different ways to be able to protect the critical resources. Now you can imagine that, okay, using the identity, the digital identity, and the various attributes associated with digital identity, okay, we are going to create a micro parameter across each of those assets, who is accessing those assets and why the person is accessing, when person is accessing, all of that we need to control. But in nutshell, there are four pillars of this identity management and zero trust, which establishes this entire network. The first pillar is to create identity-based schema, which means that every single entity, whether it's a user, within user also you have various different kind of users, the internal workforce, the partners, the external users, the consumer, all of that need to be given an identity. It is not limited only to the users, but also going to the devices. So, mobile phone, any of those devices which are coming, they also need to be identified. And it also goes to the, some of the latest technologies what people are using, like RPA, the robotic process automation, the bots, and the service account. Each one of them need to be treated as a separate identity. It need to be uniquely identified. And then based on that, you can start putting up the control. So the first pillar is that identity-based schema where every entity is given an identity, and around that, then you start building up the control. The second pillar is that how we are controlling the access to the critical resources, which means that Sundar talked in length about least privilege, but on top of that, what I'll say that we also need to look at that how people are accessing those critical resources, whether those channels are encrypted. Are you using VPN? Are you using a network, software defined network, or you are using some other mode like adaptive authentication or some other way to be able to secure the entire channel through which people, all these entities are accessing the resources. And then the third, point which comes very important is, and that is what brings the differentiation of zero trust architecture, is to continuously evaluate the trust model. And identity management solution existed past 20 years. Okay, they had been doing those authentication, authorization, and lifecycle management. However, what zero trust brings the new thing in the picture is that you need to continuously evaluate the trust model and readjust, recalibrate the trust, and based on that you allow the users to access the information. And how it is done, that based on the value of the transaction, based on the time and place from where people are actually accessing the information, or they are connecting to the network. Okay, you require to actually challenge the user by bringing different levels of authentication, like 2-factor, 3-factor, 2.5-factor, to adjust that. And that you need to do on a continuous basis. So every traffic coming into your critical resource, you need not just authenticate once and then wait for the entire day when the session is ending, then you need to do the another authentication. Rather, based on what user is doing, okay, based on that behavior, you need to probably trigger the micro certification as and when it is needed. And also the advancement of the risk analytics engine, okay, which is continuously evaluating this trust model to be able to adjust and making sure that you are not you trusted on a person, let's say now, but after 1 hour again you need to validate that what person is doing, not that once you give the authentication card and then after person is free to do whatever he or she is doing inside the organization. So based on what the user is doing, you need to continuously look at that. And then the fourth element or fourth pillar of zero trust, I'll say, is adaptive authentication. This adaptive authentication, what it brings is that based on multiple different attributes, you determine the threshold for the threat. And based on that, you actually put the different kind of challenges. Like a person logging in from US and simultaneously he logged in from Japan, okay, is a immediate security threat. So you require to actually look at that, why did this happen? And those attributes, the IP address along with the user ID and the password, okay, that can actually trigger you to take the corrective measure, that whether it's a malicious attempt or it is the kind of why it is happening, or the person had given his permissions to someone else. So I think around these four pillars, okay, if we build those identity management solution, it can actually bring the zero trust architecture in play for the organization. And identity management is the central piece for zero trust architecture. Without the tight control of identities and what people are doing, you cannot deploy the identity centric holistic cybersecurity in any organization.
Definitely, Arun. Kavita, do you have any thoughts on this zero trust and identity access management combination?
Sure. Thank you. And Arun has definitely given and covered the core components of zero trust and how important it is to just say in simple words, zero trust model is something which, even doesn't trust even the identity. The identity itself is verified explicitly, is the base foundation, where the zero trust model is a differentiator where it unifies the identity and access management environment, both wherever it's going to be implemented, be it on a cloud or on premises, on applications or any resources in the open internet. So with zero trust, we differ from this traditional model that we use, right? So when we talk about this access controls or identity and access management, we all started with the Active Directory, the base SSO login, and and most of the organizations are still living with it, the old legacy system, which is one core component for the number of cyber attacks that is raising in the market. So instead of assuming, if we just need to have a system, if you have Active Directory or a base foundation, that's going to be the solution. When the trend is changing, if you see in IAM platform, we started with Active Directory, which is the base foundation, and we moved to the privileged access management, and which was not serving the purpose. There are more, as the technology grows, as I mentioned, the vulnerabilities are accompanying them, right? So then came in the multi-factor authentication. We would have heard, right, that it's with one login it's not working. We have to authorize at least dual or multi-factor using multiple options to log into a system or an application. Even that is becoming outdated, or that is also becoming vulnerable day by day. So we are moving to a advanced state where we are going for a passwordless solutions. On a stage by stage, when we are moving, in enabling or securing our network and environment, the users or the organization should identify the proper solution to verify, are they using the right level of security controls in place? Are they evaluating the accesses that is prevailing in their environment? Are the credentials that is defined, take it with the password policy as well? So are we having a proper policy in place which is getting renewed on an ongoing basis? Are we having the accesses that is provided to the teams are evaluated on an ongoing basis? And are our applications and servers that we have enabled, are we having the proper firewalls or proper security measures that is enabled? So authentication is important. We are providing right level of access. With the providing access control, we also have to be keep in mind on cautious what level of access to whom we are providing, and if there is any intrusions that is intruding our network, do we have proper security measures in place? And at the beginning, Arun rightly stated, there are supplier dependencies as well, which is definitely being more and more dependent on the third parties, where they try to intrude our networks or work from our enterprise network for various deliverables. But when we are providing access to them, what we fail to keep in mind or understand and have this zero trust applied over there is, what is the level of security measures or security business resilience that the third parties have? So what the organizations are more concerned about is, how are we secured, and are we having the right level of security controls in place, and are we giving the right level of accesses to our users? They're only concerned about the parent organization, and they fail to understand there is a lot of chances where the supply chain attacks, or through the suppliers also, the accesses are preyed by the the predators or the hackers. So we'll have to choose a right zero trust model, and take it up with the associated technologies and the tools that is available in the market, be it on the users and device identity, or the networks that we are working on. It might be in an automized manner, so that there wouldn't be a way where we'll have to manually manually manage the access levels, or the micro segmentation. All those would not be available if we are going to have the right if it's going to be automized with the right tools that is required for managing the network. And applications and data, right? And so application and data also, we'll have to ensure the level of access that we provided are properly authenticated, authorized, and it undergoes regular certification and assessed on an ongoing basis, to ensure the applications are protected and integrated with the APIs without any errors or any threats in the model. So these are some of the thoughts from my side, Shiva. Thanks.
Thank you, Kavita. Thanks for summing up. So we are dealing with the automation and IT alignment. So how identity and access management and SIEM, security information and event management, could be integrated to achieve IT alignment and automation through AI. So Arun, any thoughts on this, like how it can be integrated, how these two security, IAM and SIM could be integrated?
So first of all, Shiva, this is the most crucial question, okay? And everybody need to actually look at this seriously. And why am I saying that? Because in past, many years, what I had seen that identity management solutions, as well as SIM solution, the security incident and event management solution, they both grew in their own isolation. They became sophisticated, while identity and access management answered the question that how to provide right access to the right people at the right amount of time. Okay, the SIM solution actually collected the log from various different devices and the events to be able to correlate and then figure out the indicators of compromise, okay, in the organization. Now, there are a lot of disadvantages, like when both of them are working in an isolated manner. Typically, like in any organization, the identity management is handled by the IT operation team, and SIM solution is handled by the SOC team, the security operation team. And integrating them together brings a lot of advantages on both the side. If you look at from the an integrated solution from the security operation perspective, so there the most important factor is getting the context for each of those events. So if one IP address from where the exfiltration of the data is started, immediately the security analyst sitting in the SOC need to know that who is this IP address belonging to, what is the role of the person in the organization. Based on that, it can be determined that what's going on in the environment. So without having this integration of IAM solution with the SIM, it is not possible to get the right context. And other way around also, if you look at that, if the system is not enabled, so what happens that the automated response cannot be implemented, because even though you see that there is a data hack started, you need to actually call the IAM person and like maybe through the message, or reach out to them, get the approval, and then say that, okay, hey, you lock that account temporarily or take away the privileges to be able to stop those security incident. So integrating both identity management solution and SIM brings a lot of advantages. From overall security posture perspective, it improves the maturity of the security posture. It improves the time to take the action on any of security event, and it also kind of reduces the overall risk in the organization. Now, how the integration can be done? Very simple way that each of these IAM solution, like all these advanced solutions, they actually generate a lot of logs, okay, in terms of the failed login attempts, the people who had kind of tried to access the critical information from the different time, the different attribute what it generates. All these logs needed to be fed to the security operations center or to the SIM tool, where the use cases, the correlation rules can be defined based on the user behavior model. And if you do not have this integration, you cannot actually do that. So first step is that, okay, all the logs generated through the IAM solution need to be fed to the SOC. And then the second step is that correlation rules need to be defined, or based on those behavioral use cases, you require to do the correlation to be able to identify indicators of compromise early on and take remedial measure, okay, based on that quickly. By in the integrated model, you can quickly terminate the privileges for any of the user where you find any suspicious activity going on. So that's the kind of model in which it works. Now, one other aspect I would like to bring here is, like, if you look at the landscape of IAM product vendor in the market, right now you need to actually deploy about 5 to 7 different IAM component to be able to gather all the logs. Like, there are products which handle only access management. There are products which handle only authentication. There are products which handle only identity governance administration. And then there are products which offer only the privileged account management. Now imagine that challenge what you have here, that you need to pull in the log or the identity related intelligence data from each of these 5-6 different tools and then feed to the SIM to be able to do the correlation. And that's where the converged IAM solution, which Alentis had built, this compact identity, that simplifies your job, because it's a all-in-one IAM platform where the complete identity intelligence can be very easily integrated with the SIM tool, whether it's a QRadar, Splunk, Securonics, any of these tools, and gain those intelligence to be able to take action.
Definitely, Arun. Thanks for the insights. Kavita, do you have any thoughts on this? How it can be integrated?
Right. Thank you, Arun. I think Arun has covered it, completely. But there is to add on a few things. Both, IAM and CM, both technologies have advanced. In the past few years, there are a lot of changes that has come in, where we all know that IAM, or the access controls, is the skeleton of an organization. Any accesses that is to be enabled or to be disabled or revoked, this plays a very key role in IT operations on a day-to-day basis. Where CM is again a safeguard, we can say, a safeguard which completely focuses on the security of the systems. So now the organizations are looking at not only increasing the security controls, but also to integrate them bi-directionally, to ensure the security analysts and the IDAM SMEs bring better context to their events. If there is any events, or if there is any threats that is coming up, they are looking for a proper to create a proper triage, for IAM to create identity, and to provide the proper alerts that is coming in, to be entered, or to be registered, or to be raised in the CM tool, meaning users, whoever has been granted with a privilege of accesses, and monitoring their behaviors, monitoring their any changes in the accesses or intrusion in the network that can be foreseen with the tools that we have in the market. Definitely, the resources definitely help us to identify, if there is any unexpected behaviors or any issues that arises, by the IAM team. They can definitely integrate with the CM team to understand the possibility, suspend the accesses and privileges removed, in a timely basis, which gives a comfort zone or a comfort for the CISO or the senior management, for lessening or reducing the business disruptions that's caused by unwanted or unauthorized accesses, and for quicker remediation and improved security posture, if we are going to have a integrated approach work where IAM and CM team work together. So what there are simple questions that we need to raise ourselves when we are looking for this integration, or to take steps before we take any calls or any decisions on the unexpected behaviors or unexpected threats that is foreseen. So do our
Yeah.
analysts from both CM and IAM are integrated? They know the understanding of the threat landscape, have a pivot to or have a access to have a restricted access, in fact, to the tools that is prevailing in the environment, and both of them are working together to gather contextual information rather than being working on a silo or a solo mode where they are not aware about their own threat landscape first. The awareness plays a very key role over here. And the next important question is there a information gap between the IAM team and the security operations teams to integrate and bridge the gap that has been raised in the environment? That's another key question that we'll have to ask ourselves while we are planning and integrating the teams, or not only the IAM or the security operations. IAM also plays key role across horizontally across various domains, be it with compliance. Are we integrating, are we compliant in nature? Our policies, our standards that we defined, are they current, and our policies in line with the expectations, be it the client policy or be it the enterprise policy or the ISO standards? Are we in line with the expectations? And another
Yeah.
key question that we need to ask ourselves is, are there ways where we can automate the lookups to ingest time and to reduce the time taken to log events, or to respond to the issues that has been raised in a sufficient manner? Does your IAM platform provide high fidelity security events, such as it might be anomalous behaviors, or any unexpected intrusions in the network? Are they identifying, how are they identifying? Is it a manual monitoring monitoring that they are doing, and struggling to identify the issues or the threats that is happening? What are the resources that we have, or the data points that we have to justify or to to analyze the threat that is prevailing in our environment?
Yeah.
Unless there's a proper identification, monitoring, and capacity management of the organization, it would be very difficult for avoiding or reducing the access
Yeah.
threats that we are facing in the market.
Sure,
Thank you.
Kavita. Thanks for providing a note. And so we are almost near the end of our webinar. So we have few participant queries which I'd like you to like Arun to answer. Arun, we have interesting questions. One such question is it possible to build zero trust on top of the existing infrastructure?
So answer is yes, we can definitely integrate the existing infrastructure to build the zero trust. But if you look at the complete requirement of zero trust, you need to actually look at what are the missing gaps in the architecture. Like for example, the existing infrastructure might have the Active Directory, which you can certainly utilize. If you have SSO solution, that you can certainly utilize. But if there are missing component related to identity governance administration, or the PAM solution is missing, those additional components you need to add on top of that to be able to build a modern zero trust framework.
Sure. So one other interesting question is, what are the realistic implementation challenges of zero trust in hybrid IAM model?
So I can take that. So if you look at some of those challenges, I'll share, and maybe Kavita, you can add to that. So one of the challenge, what I always come across while I was advising the clients in my prior role and in the current role, that people are a little bit concerned about the productivity issue related to zero trust implementation. Like as you tighten up this least privilege model, and always continuously do the verification of authentication authorization, people are really concerned about the productivity impact because of that. because it's not easy to be able to allow anybody, or in the situation of emergency, how to you tackle those situations. And I would say that one of the big challenges that were to pick up the technology and configure it in a manner that productivity is not impacted. Imagine the situation where if you are continuously doing the authentication, the user need to type in user ID password again and again. And some of these solutions are coming in from the technology perspective, like what Kavita mentioned, that passwordless authentication is catching up big trend in the market. And what it actually brings is to reduce the friction of authentication. So you don't have to type in the login ID password again and again, but system itself in the back end, okay, it takes care of, based on those attributes, it can take care of that continuous authentication model. So I would say that productivity is one very important area. And second is that many a time people actually look at zero trust solution deployment or architecture deployment in isolation. Okay, they need to look at this in an integrated fashion. If you look at it in isolation, then in place of solving the problem, it will leave more gaps in the environment from where the hackers can get in. So it is integrated solution. Okay, that's the way it need to be looked at. So once you are tightening up the access control, the identity management, you need to also look at your network, your the complete environment, the cloud hybrid PaaS application, IaaS application, and then integrated strategy always helps to reduce the overall risk.
Definitely, Arun. So we are almost, we are almost to the end of the webinar, and it was very interesting that we had this discussion over IAM and the zero trust. And I would like to thank everyone for taking out the time to attend this webinar. I believe through this webinar, everyone would have gotten a fair understanding on the identity and access management and zero trust. And it was a pleasure to have Arun, Kavita, and Sundar to provide. On providing their insights, and the discussion is good. We will come up with other such important and interesting topics soon. Once again, thank you, Arun, Kavita, and Sundar, and the participants.
Yeah,
Please
no,
stay safe.
thank you so much to all the audience, everyone who joined this webinar. One additional point I would like to mention that a couple of months back, I published a paper on, for advanced threat protection, build your IAM platform on zero trust architecture. This was published in the Forbes magazine. So Shiva, if you could actually share the link with the audience, I would definitely like them to go through that paper and share their feedback with us. Thank you.
Definitely, Arun. We will share the link, and also we will send as a handout to all the participants in this webinar.
All
So
right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, sure. Thank you,
okay, once
everyone,
again,
for
thank you.
giving us an opportunity to interact with all of you, and thank you for your time. So one last message I would like to say and end this session is, team innovation is under pressure and the technology is growing significantly on a day-to-day basis. So, as the technology grows, as I said, it's accompanied with vulnerabilities. So we all have to be ready to embrace with the changes and adapt to the emerging trends. And this will definitely working together to meet both the regulations and the standard requirements will reduce risk, and you'll have to see beyond excellence to build business resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks, Kavita,
Thanks,
Shiva,
Arun.
and Sundar.
Thanks,
Thanks, Arun.
everyone. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Arun.
Bye bye.
You too.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.